Every year, across its four largest metropolitan areas, India's economy bleeds $22 billion because its workforce is perpetually sitting in traffic. Take the critical corridor between India's commercial capital, Mumbai, and the industrial hub of Pune. On any given day, roughly 130,000 vehicles make this trip, trapped in a grinding 2.5-hour crawl through congested highways. Now, the country's rail network is seeing major upgrades. Semi-high-speed transit, like the Vande Bharat Express, is modernizing the rails. But steel wheels on steel tracks face physical limits. Air resistance and ground friction place a hard ceiling on how fast conventional trains can move. With urban populations expected to surge by another 400 million people by 2050, laying down slightly faster traditional rail won't solve the mobility crisis. The math demands an entirely different approach to conquering distance. So let's run a simulation. What would happen to the nation's economy if we bypassed traditional rail entirely and overnight linked India's 10 wealthiest cities with a 1,000 km/h transportation network? The technology proposed to do this is the Hyperloop. Instead of a train pushing through the open atmosphere, passenger pods use magnetic levitation to hover inside a sealed, near-vacuum tube. By removing air resistance and physical friction, these pods can hit high subsonic speeds. Projecting this onto a map creates a decacity grid, linking 10 massive economic engines: Mumbai, Delhi, Bengaluru, Chennai, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Ahmedabad, Pune, Surat, and Visakhapatnam. Zooming into the Delhi-Mumbai vector, a standard 22-hour rail journey plummets to just 69 minutes. Geographers call this space-time compression. You no longer have separate, isolated regional markets. You merge the administrative power of Delhi, the financial capital of Mumbai, and the tech hubs of the south into a single contiguous economic zone. Deleting distance between massive populations this quickly forces 10 distinct economies into a violent collision, triggering severe physical and socioeconomic shocks. The unforgiving reality of fluid dynamics presents a far more immediate threat to our simulation than the financial cost. Moving anything that fast near the surface of the Earth is exceptionally difficult. This illustrates the Kantrowitz limit. Accelerating capsules force residual air through the narrow gap between the pod and tube walls. Eventually, airflow chokes, creating a massive high-pressure wall ahead of the pod. This extreme friction causes thermal expansion, threatening to warp the entire steel infrastructure. And then there is the kinetic energy problem. If a single pod experiences a mechanical failure and abruptly stops at 1,000 km/h, every trailing pod in that low-pressure environment is suddenly hurtling toward a blockage, triggering a catastrophic chain reaction. To survive these aerodynamic limits, a Hyperloop requires a level of manufacturing precision and fail-safe automation that simply doesn't exist yet at scale. You cannot rush the physics. Even if we assume the engineering is flawless, an overnight rollout of this network runs straight into an equally devastating barrier: human geography. Planners warn of the backwash effect. Because extreme speeds require bypassing intermediate stops, a direct Mumbai to Pune route completely isolates the towns between them. Wealth, investment, and talent drain from this periphery into the core nodes. Megacities swell, leaving bypassed regions economically stranded in the dark. This polarization is magnified by the cost. Building a single ultra-high-speed vacuum corridor requires hundreds of millions of dollars. For a fraction of that capital, a city can build comprehensive bus rapid transit or localized metro rail systems that serve millions of lower and middle-income residents every day. A rapid Hyperloop deployment provides a 25-minute commute for wealthy elites, while actively siphoning economic lifeblood away from the vast majority of the population. So what happens if India builds a 10-city Hyperloop overnight? It triggers a spectacular engineering, financial, and sociological disaster, which is exactly why the Indian government and researchers have abandoned the fantasy of a massive, debt-funded commercial network in favor of a much slower, more pragmatic approach. They are choosing technological sovereignty over rapid deployment. The real work is happening quietly at the IIT Madras Discovery Campus. Here, the Ministry of Railways has partnered with a deep tech startup called Tutra Hyperloop to build a dedicated research facility. They constructed a 400-meter test track, the longest in Asia. The goal isn't to launch passengers between cities tomorrow. The goal is to systematically prove the viability of magnetic levitation and vacuum systems, step by painstaking step, in a completely controlled environment. Systemic transportation shifts don't happen in a vacuum. Pun absolutely intended. You cannot bypass the laws of aerodynamics or the realities of urban economics with a single grand stroke. To safely conquer distance at 1,000 kilometers an hour, progress has to be earned, one carefully tested meter at a time.